Chats is a discussion forum, essentially a Christian discussion forum where we discuss topics that are important for our community and also as members of the society of this country. We also discuss some common subjects that are relevant for everyone. And today, truly, creation care is one such subject that is very, very important. It is fundamentally important. All of us are experiencing abnormal climate, behavior. We are getting rain at different times. We are getting, we are already feeling how the creation is really spinning out of control, and it's really, really urgent. I'm so thankful to all of you who have joined. It is so, I think, encouraging. I really pray that we will all be encouraged today and we'll all be motivated as Sister Joylin leads us, and we can all do something in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in our communities, wherever we come from. Okay. All right. So I just want to introduce our speaker today, Sister Joylin Niruba. She's been working with Eficor for the last 6 years. Eficor is a Christian relief and development organization serving for the last 56 years with a mission to work towards a just, compassionate, and responsible society. Eficor works with the marginalized communities in 15 states of India, empowering and building their resilience. Eficor's training wing is involved in training and mobilizing churches to engage in social work and creation care. Sister Joylin works as a trainer for creation care with the training department, traveling across India, engaging and equipping churches and individuals to better care for God's creation. Joylin is married to Wesley Titus and they live in Delhi. They also serve in the pastoral team in their local church. So, welcome, Sister Joylin. It's good to have you again. Over to you to lead us in this session, creation care. What can we do? Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me again. Especially thank you to Pastor Abhijit for asking me to come back. This is my second time here in the coffee chat. So it is very encouraging, especially when Christians invite us to speak about creation care because it's not particularly a famous, what to say, like sought after topic. So we are so encouraged. Eficor is very encouraged to be part of this. Thank you so much. Um, because we started a bit late, I don't want to take much time. My name is Joylin, like Pastor already said. So I work for Eficor as trainer for creation care. So we do trainings across India wherever we can, whenever we can, when we get an opportunity to work with churches, speaking from scripture as to exploring why as Christians we need to care for creation and what can we do. So we also talk a little bit about the current environmental issues and then going to practically seeing what we can do and what is our role as God's children in caring for His creation. Yeah. So, on before I begin, I just want to say that I wouldn't consider myself an expert in environment. I am learning along the way. It's something that I'm very passionate about, something I'm very convicted about, and and have committed my life to do this, but I'm not an expert in any way. And every time we get to do sessions, I learn a lot from people who are part of it. So even as we go through the sessions, everyone's opinions is welcome. This is going to be an interactive session. As much as possible, we will like to keep it interactive. So please feel free to put your thoughts on the chat. If you have any questions, any suggestions, we are open to that and we'll look at it at the end. Yeah. So let's get started. So, beginning with why? Why should we care for God's creation? So, I'm going to be speaking from the Christian perspective, the biblical perspective, because we believe in Eficor. We believe that whatever we do, we should be driven by Scripture. So, we can act from a place of fear when we look at the things happening around us, especially concerning environmental degradation. It's so fearful, and we can panic and do things out of fear, or we can act from a place of faith. And we believe that when we act from a place of faith, that is more sustainable, more effective, more impactful than working from a place of fear. So, there are different ways to look at why we should care for God's world. For some of us, it may be for our own sake, right? Without healthy nature, we wither. Or it could be for the sake of the poor. Um, they suffer first from nature's depletion. We know that some of you, I was just hearing some of the conversations before we started, that you are working with the communities and you see how the environmental impact is first seen on the poor, although they are the ones who least contribute to it. And for the sake of the earth, that is, ecosystem services are being put to risk, right? But overall, what we want to see is because we are God's children, because God cares about this world, God cares about His creation, and so we care about God's creation. So we'll explore that a little bit as we move forward. So, looking at the theological perspective of why we should care for creation, right? So, I'll be very quick. We've done a longer session before. I think it's on YouTube. If you are interested, you can go back to that. We looked more, explored more on scripture, looking at the whole idea of why we should care for creation. This is going to be quick, but if you want, you can refer back to that one. So we see beginning from Genesis 1. We know God created the earth, and if you see, God created a good earth. We see so many references to God saying, he looked at it and God saw that it was good. It was good. And towards the end, he says he looked at everything that he made and it was very good. So, God's original plan was that he created a good earth. And um, further moving on to Genesis 1:26 to 28, we all know we are created in the image of God. So, looking at it, humanity was called apart to image God in caring for creation, right? Wow. We are image bearers, but mostly in carrying out his characters, his attributes. When we say image bearers, um, especially in caring for creation, we see that in Genesis 2:7 to 17, God's first mission or calling that we see in the Bible to humanity was to take care of God's earth and tend it. If you see, it says that God put Adam in Eden, and he says, work it and take care of it. Work it, of course, use it for your good, but also take care of it. So we see that there is the first instruction written in the Bible towards humanity is one of the first instructions is to care for creation. We have a mandate there, right? But of course, we know what happened as a result of sin. We live because of the entrance of sin. We now live in a fallen world where there's a breakdown of relationships between God, humanity, and creation. And the ground was cursed because of man's sin. We know all of us know that. And there are several references in scripture which talks about the environmental results of sin, so that there's a direct connection between sin, human sin, and the impact on the environment. There are words used such as the land suffers, mourns, vomits, groans, because of sin. And of course, coming to God's redemption plan, we see that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, right? So we often think that God so loved the people that he gave his only son. But many of you here, theologians, may know that the original text says cosmos as in everything that was created, right? Everything that God created, not just people, but all of his creation. God so loved everything that he made. God so loved the cosmos that he gave his only son. So creation itself was included in God's redemption plan. And moving on, we see that the future hope, it says that creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into glorious freedom of the children of God. So it is waiting to be set free. We read in Romans 8:21, and it also goes on to say that creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Right? If you read those verses, it talks about the groaning, that it will be liberated, and it is waiting for us, waiting for the church, the children of God, to be revealed, to step up and rediscover our role in being God's caretakers for this earth. Right? So I think the core idea of why we should care for God's creation is, of course, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. It is not our world, it is the Lord's, right? Everything was created by Him and for Him. And then He turns around and He gives it to mankind and He says, take care of it, right? So I think, unfortunately, we've forgotten our role as stewards, as God's caretakers, and we've somehow assumed that we live as if the world is ours, right? We can do whatever we want with it. So I will be quickly showing you all some pictures talking about what are some major environmental issues, how is the environment degrading, and what is climate change. Because if we don't understand what is happening, we cannot really do anything about it. I mean, what is our role in it will not be clear if we don't really understand the gravity of the problem of environmental degradation, right? How far we have come from our calling to care for God's creation. So you must have heard the word climate change very often, greenhouse, global warming, all these terms. These are like hot terms used everywhere. Sometimes we know something about it, not very sure what it is about. So I'll quickly try to talk about the science behind it. So we know this is the sun, we have the earth, and every energy that is produced on earth is from the sun, right? The solar radiation is in the form of light waves, passes through the atmosphere and it reaches the earth, and all the energy that is produced on earth, the primary source is the solar radiation in the form of light and heat. So if you clearly see, if you carefully see this, there's this light blue blanket kind of thing around the earth that you see here. So that is a mixture of gases called the greenhouse gases. Okay, so it covers the earth like a blanket. You can assume, you can imagine the earth being covered with a layer of gases called the greenhouse gases. You must have heard about the term greenhouse gases. So what do these greenhouse gases do? So when the solar radiation falls to the earth, it passes through this mixture of gases. So part of it is absorbed by the earth, right? The plants absorb it, the earth, the surface of the earth is warmed by these radiations. So part of it is absorbed and part of it is radiated back into the space. Okay, if you notice those red lines that you can see, so some part of it is absorbed, some part of it is radiated back. So there is a perfect balance of this whole thing. Okay, so part of it being absorbed, part of it being radiated, again some of it, while it is going outside, some of it is coming back to this earth. It's a bit complicated, but you don't have to think, remember all that. It's just that God made it in such a way, it's perfect, that the temperature of the earth is perfect for life to be sustained, right? It's not too hot, nor is it too cold. So perfect for life to sustain. That's how God made it. So the greenhouse gas is actually a natural phenomenon that God made, right? Without this, the earth would be like minus 18 degrees Celsius, right? All of the heat would be radiated back and it'll be too cold for life to sustain. So this is good. But unfortunately, what we have done is this mixture of gases, mainly carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, and other minor gases. So these naturally occurring gases, now we have started producing a lot of them, right? We produce a lot of greenhouse gases now, that this layer, this blanket around the earth has now become very thick. So it's like we have one blanket and suddenly the earth is now covered with 10 blankets. So there's more heat that is being trapped, right? So obviously, when you in winter, if you wear one sweater, how you feel, and then 10 sweaters, how you feel, there's a difference. So as a result, the earth surface is becoming warmer and warmer, and every year we keep breaking the record of the previous year. So the main problem here is the greenhouse gases. The natural greenhouse effect is now become an enhanced greenhouse effect because of human activities. Okay, because we are producing so much of greenhouse gases that this blanket has become thick, and so more heat is being trapped, and so everything is becoming warmer. And nature is so delicate that even a point 1, 0.5 difference in this temperature can cause havoc. Okay. So where are these gases coming from? The greenhouse gases. So this is one of a study done by University of California. They say it varies from country to country, but overall globally average is 25% from electricity and heat production of electricity. Anything that burns fuel produces carbon dioxide. Okay, so as simple as that. So electricity, and then we have agriculture and farms. So agriculture processes land conversion, produces a lot of gases that are harmful, especially methane. And then we have the industries, of course, and then transportation. I said anything that burns fuel. So all the transportation that works on fuel, they produce carbon dioxide. Then we have different other sources, right? Food waste. So I like this picture, right? Because it shows a lungs, a pair of lungs, and then there's this forest. So you've heard it so many times, but we can't stress it enough. The forest is the lungs of the earth, and slowly we have been cutting down our own lungs, and then you can imagine what will happen when your lungs, if you imagine just cutting off your lungs little by little every day, and then you're left with no oxygen, very less oxygen. We'll have to be carrying oxygen tanks around, right? So this is a picture of Amazon forest, which is known as the lungs of the earth, 1975 and then 2012. You can see how much of forest has reduced, and this is like so many years, almost 12 years ago. So you can imagine how it is now. So trees, which actually absorb carbon dioxide, which is one of the major greenhouse gases, when you cut them, they not only are no longer able to absorb oxygen, but they also release the stored carbon dioxide, right? So there's a lot of carbon dioxide produced because of deforestation. Another major problem that we face is waste. um, you may think, what's the big problem with waste? So waste production is one of the major consumers of energy. Well, not waste basically, but when you make things, you need energy to make things, and then when you discard them, it's wasted. So we need new stuff. So then there's waste that causes more demand in energy, as well as the degradation process releases a lot of methane. Landfills are one of the highest methane producing sites globally, right? And talk about plastics waste, they're not biodegradable. That's a whole another level of problems that we'll talk about in just a bit. These are just some pictures from across India of landfills that we see. um, Delhi has a landfill which is almost, they say it's the height of Taj Mahal. Okay, and it keeps increasing every day. It's just 4 meters less than the Qutub Minar. If you've seen the Qutub Minar, you know how tall it is. So in Ghazipur, that's a landfill, and they say at one point we will have no more land to put our waste in, and we'll have to be literally living on waste, right? We'll have to do everything walking, living on waste. This is a picture from beach, Chennai, Marina Beach. It's very sad. Recently, I visited it, and it's disgusting. The waste that has washed up God's beautiful earth. We've made it a dump yard, basically. Plastics is another major problem. Plastic is not biodegradable, as some of you may know. Basically, we made things which we don't know how to get rid of. So in God's original world, if you think about it, there's no waste. Everything went back to the way it was, right? Including our own bodies. Everything went back to the soil. But then we created things which are fantastic, but we don't know how to get rid of them. So plastics is one such thing. They've made life so easy, but we don't know how to get rid of them. So they're like everywhere, contaminating our water, soil, air, everything. And the most terrible thing is the use of plastic bags. Approximately 1 million plastic bags end up in the trash every minute globally, right? This and this will remain on earth for the next 500 to 1000 years, because they take around 500 to 1000 years to completely leave the earth. So that's how bad it is, and meanwhile they are everywhere. These are some pictures of our let me show you. Yeah, the so animals think plastics are food because it's very colorful, so they eat it, and then because plastics are not biodegradable, they just stay in their stomach, so they feel full all the time, and they stop eating and they starve to death. Okay, we have millions and millions of animals dying because of plastic pollution. These are just some pictures that you see. If you Google it, you will see horrendous pictures of what we have done to God's beautiful earth, of the animals and birds that suffer because of that 5 minute walk from the shop to our house, that we carry the plastic bag and then we bin it, and then it remains on earth creating havoc. It causes disfiguration of their bodies, like you see in the turtle, which has got a plastic belt, I think, stuck in its body, and it just grew over into it. And there's this cow. There was a report that almost 4 to 5 cases the vets get every week of animals that have ingested plastics. And I think in Chennai recently they removed 53 kg of plastics from a cow. All our water bodies are dying because we have filled it with plastic, right? So another thing is extreme weather events because of the global warming. There are floods in one place, droughts in another place, hurricanes, wildfires, cyclones, like extreme weather events, right? Which is not common to that place. Everywhere we see. And while it's flooding in one section of the earth, there's droughts in another place of the earth. Our glaciers are melting, right, because of the increased heat. This is a picture of a glacier taken in 1980 and then 2003. You can see how much has melted and continues to melt. This is our Gangotri glacier, which is rapidly melting. And as a result, there's sea level rise, which means the water is coming and taking over the land, right? So this is Bangladesh. They say that Bangladesh has lost 5 meters because of the inflow of water. So if you can see, you can see the land and how much of water has gone inside. Um, Islands are disappearing. Climate refugees. This is a new word, right? We've heard of war refugees, but now there are climate refugees who are forced to move away because of the land not being able to support them anymore. And countries are buying, like island countries are buying land in other countries because their islands are going underwater rapidly. And then there's pollution. These are common things. I don't want to talk much about it because we'll focus on what we can do. Of course, we've lost so many of our animals and birds, flora and fauna. And they say that in this century, we are now at the risk of losing up to 50% of all land based species at that rate. And our, sorry. So if you see some of you working in rural areas, the production is coming down, the poor being affected because of it, farmer suicides increasing because of it, migration increasing because of it, so much suffering, right? Um, as temperature rises, so does water use, and as a result, they say that the next world war may be fought over water. That's what they're predicting. Um, Unfortunately, as the temperature increases, if we see who are the most vulnerable, we will cope. Like people who can afford things, somehow we'll find ways, right? We'll have the AC. The rich will always find a way to cope. But it is the poor, homeless, elderly, infants, children, those with pre-existing medical conditions, mentally ill, agriculture workers, those with outdoor jobs, they are the most affected, right? Who are suffering the most because of increased heat and climate change. So this is not an exhaustive list, but if you read the news, you are familiar with all that's happening because of um, our negligence. Well, humanity basically, right? And we've forgotten our role as God's caretakers, as stewards of God's creation, and we've just become consumers, right? We just think everything is for our disposal, we can do whatever. And some of these things may seem like somebody somewhere is doing, but we are all contributing to this. I'm contributing to this. People here, all of us here are contributing to it. So I think I just want to show you all some. It's very, we do almost a 1 day session on this, so I've run it in like 10 minutes, but there's too much of suffering for us, for God's creation, for people created in the image of God, poor people, and also God's beautiful earth is groaning, is groaning, literally groaning, suffering because of our actions. So we have a role in it, right? We have a role because we are contributors to the problems, but we also have a role in being the solution, right? And unfortunately, God's good earth is now very, very sick, right? So I said the earth is the Lord's, right? The beautiful earth that God made, Genesis 1. He saw it and said it was very good. But I just want us to think about it. The earth is the Lord's and all in it, and this is the world that we've made of. We've made it such a place. So going to what can we do, right? So before I talk about some pointers, I just want to hear from y'all. If you can just put in your chat, what do you think you can do? I know the problem can seem like so overwhelming, and then like there's too much, it's just way out of control, but there is hope, right? As long as the Lord Jesus is Lord of all, that's what scripture says. He's Lord of all creation, everything is under him, and we as his caretakers, when we rediscover our role, there is hope, right? So I want you all to just think about what can you do, and maybe share it in the chat.
Okay, friends, please quickly share it in the chat. What can we do? Some suggestions. Go ahead, please. Can you respond quickly on chat? Anyone? Some of the suggestions. Come on, friends, quickly respond. Yeah, make our through your act make our aware. I think through your activities aware. Okay, make
Right.
aware. Okay, anything else? What are the things we can do to save the environment, protect the environment? Anything besides activities? Anything else comes to your mind? Awareness program. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
in my church
I
bulletin.
have written in my church bulletin. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Very encouraging.
To reduce use of plastic,
Okay, thank you.
paper or cloth bags. Oops, have to be okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, don't use plastic at all. Speak to neighbors too. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Compulsory subject. Yes. Reusable utensils, right? So please keep them coming, right? You, as we explore these things, you can keep thinking and please keep them coming. It can help others as well. Some great ideas. Uh, so Okay, so let me begin with, as an individual, what can I do? Right? So I'll also speak a little bit as a family, what can we do? As a community, what can we do? And as a church, what can we do? Right? So, first of all, I think it begins with us recognizing our role as God's image bearers to care for the earth. So, um, for example, I'm a wife. If I don't realize that I'm a wife, I will not do things that a wife is expected to do, right? So if I'm a teacher and if I'm just, like living without knowing that I'm a teacher, I'm not going to teach. So it's like that, right? So recognizing our role, and when you read through scripture, somehow we put on these lens that we train our eyes to see only things that we can see. So look at it from the perspective of creation care. So recognizing that we are God's image bearers, and in with respect to caring for God's creation, right? Of course, we are the pinnacle of creation, right? But we are set apart from the rest of creation to be God's representatives to care for his creation, right? So, and when we realize our role, and then we suddenly realize that, I have not really done what I'm supposed to do, right? My role as a wife, when I realize that I've not lived up to it, we seek forgiveness, right? So first of all, I think we need to begin with our hearts, like ask for forgiveness and amend our ways of destroying God's earth, right? I think in our programs, we ask people to list down the ways in which they are contributing to the destruction of the earth. That's a very powerful activity. When you start thinking about, before you think about what you can do, you think about in what ways am I currently contributing to the destruction of God's good earth. And when you realize it, it's an eye-opening thing for many of us. So then you ask God to forgive you, and then you change, right? You do better, amend our ways of destroying God. So Revelation 11:12. I don't have time to go through all of that, but you can go back to it. It says that on the judgment day, God will destroy those who destroy the earth. Okay, that was like first time when I heard, I was like, whoa, um, you can read it. So, and another thing, when we come to our possessions, right? All the things that we need and buy, and where does our worth come from? I think that's a very good thing to think about. Your identity, where does it come from? I think many of us are under the pressure to buy stuff, to have a bigger house, to have a better car, to have three, four cars, to take the car instead of the bus. Many times it's our status quo, right? Like we want to be known as someone, or like many things. I'm also guilty of it. Many times we do things which are destroying God's earth, directly or indirectly, because we want to project ourselves in a light where we feel that everyone thinks we have a lot, we are a lot, right? But I think it comes back to going to, where does my identity come from? Luke 8:14, Jesus and the rich ruler, Jesus is saying, the young rich ruler. So he's saying, beware of covetousness, for a man's life consists not in the abundance of the things which he possesses. I think that's a good reminder for all of us to remember that our worth does not come from the things we own, right? We don't need 10 pairs of slippers to, actually match, to make ourselves look better, right? So where does consumerism is not bad, but over consumerism, that's the problem. We don't know to stop at consuming things. We have this tendency to overconsume, and many times comfort versus conviction, right? So we know this is bad for the earth, but it's so convenient, right? Use and throw things are so convenient. We don't have to wash it, you don't have to remember to carry it. It's really that struggle, I understand. But I think when our conviction is strong, we don't mind making the sacrifice of our comfort. So many of the choices that you make, we look into specific choices, but I think it begins with the heart. So conviction, your conviction is so important so that you can make that sacrifice of your comfort. And again, contentment versus consumerism, over consumerism, right? So why waste is such a problem now, which was not a problem before, is because now everything's so cheap. We don't have to repair or replace. I mean, we don't have to repair or reuse things. We can just throw them away and buy new things. If you think about your parents and how many clothes they owned, or like how many slippers they owned, how many shoes they owned, and us and our children, what a huge difference, right? And sometimes we don't even stop to think about what it's doing to God's earth. We put it in the dustbin and we think it's not our business anymore. But there's no away, with our rubbish. So I think coming back to contentment, scripture says godliness with contentment is a great game. I cannot vouch for it more. So, yeah, I think especially in this term, it's important to relook at our contentment. Are we content with what we have? And if we need more, why do we need more, right? And I think most importantly, educate yourself and others. Many times people are not aware of what's happening to our to God's earth and how their actions are contributing to God's destruction of God's earth. So I think Google has everything. So just educate yourself, find out things, take the time to find out, educate yourself and others, let others know, right? Uh, I so before, you must have heard the 3 R's of sustainability, right? Reuse, recycle, and I think it's reduce. But now, because the problem has exploded, now even the R's have increased. So now we have 7 R's of sustainability. This is very helpful when you make choices, right? So you begin with rethink. So anytime you have to make a choice with regard to any of your actions, right? Um, Taking a bus, going to the office, buying a new pair of clothes, or buying a new appliance, or whatever it is, right? Your actions, stop and rethink. Stop and ask yourself that question: do I really need this? Can I do without it? Is there another better way to do this that will cause less destruction to God's earth? Right? So I think the first point is so crucial. Stop and rethink. Rethink your choices, rethink your options, rethink your actions, and think about it. Like, do I need this? Give yourself time. If you want to buy anything, just rethink, pause, and think, right, do I really need this? Let me not buy it now. Let me wait for some time and see if I can do with it. Maybe I can ask someone if they have an extra pen. Or there's so many ways, right? That so you rethink. And when you rethink, if you can refuse, please refuse. If you can say no, right? It begins with that. This is even before the stuff can come inside your house. Think about saying no. This is something that is good for us spiritually, physically, logistically, and environmentally. Learning to say no, learning to say no to things that are destroying God's earth. When we go to the sabji wala, by default, he's like giving us so many plastic covers. I always say, Bhaiya, nahi chahiye, bhaiya. And then, like, he has to many times remove again the knot and then, like, dump it in my bag, and then he has to take it back. But it's worth it. Like, even if I can reduce 5 plastic covers a week, it makes a lot of difference for in when you count that 1 billion that is ending up in the oceans. If I can do something about it, I can, right? So refuse, say no to things that are not environmental friendly. Okay, you can, maybe the way in which you like the product, but the way the product is packaged, you don't like it. Maybe you can learn to say no. Talk to the people who make it and say, I like your product, but I don't like the way it's um packaged, so I'm going to say no to that. So learning to refuse things. And if you cannot refuse, if you cannot say no, please reduce, right? Reduce. If you plastic sometimes is so difficult to completely not use it. It is not possible because it's everywhere. If you look around, wherever you're sitting, there's so much plastic everywhere. But you can reduce. Definitely, we can reduce, right? Reduce your consumption. And this is not just with things, even our consumption patterns of electricity, water, food. Reduce. Simplicity is a good virtue to cultivate, right? And if you cannot reduce, you can reuse, right? There are things that you can reuse. You don't have to please avoid single use things, which may be cheap, but on the long run is not good for your pocket, not good for the environment. So reuse things as much as possible. um, you can even the like packaging stuff that you get, you can reuse it, right? Initially, I used to be very particular about my kitchen looking uniform. I need all of them to be the same size. I would buy storage boxes. But now, if you look at it, I don't care because there's so much I can reuse. So there will be ice cream boxes and detergent bottles, and anything that can be reused, that you should not throw away. You can reuse it, right? And repair. This is something that we've really forgotten, right? Repair. We've become like it's no longer cool to repair things. But this is a very good thing that I think our ancestors had, our grandparents had, but which is slowly disappearing. Let's bring it back. Let's repair things. It's also livelihood for people who do these things. Cobblers, you hardly find them anymore because you can buy a pair of slippers for 200 rupees. We don't want to repair it, take the effort to go. But where is that waste going, right? If you think about it, it's worth taking it to the person who can repair it. Your clothes, if there's a tear, don't throw it away. Take it to the tailor and ask them to repair it. Your appliances, everything, as much as possible, repair. And repurpose is, so when I say reuse, you can reuse the same thing again and again. Repurpose is, you can find creative ideas to use the same thing for a different purpose, right? Like you can use a bottle as a flower vase instead of buying a new flower vase. So there are so many things like that. You can Google it. I'm not going into all of it because of lack of time. But and the last option is recycle. Okay, recycling is good, but it also takes a lot of energy to make things go back to its original form and then make other things. So the last option is recycling. And if all this is not possible, then it goes to the landfill, right? So, but I think the point is to go to a point where we do not have to put it in the landfill anymore, right? We can reduce as much as possible in our own places so that it doesn't have to go and become a problem for the government and for the earth and everywhere, right? Um, so some things that you can think of as a family is creating a family culture of caring for God's earth. Inculcate simple living in children. This is something that I'm really glad that my parents did. They were, I grew up thinking that simplicity was the way of life. Like, only I think after I got married and came out and was exposed to different places and different people, I realized that, oh, it was such a wonderful thing to grow up in a family where things were not a big deal at all. Like we would, simplicity, it was like so much joy in it. Like, I remember growing up, I had only one pair of slippers, and when that breaks, we go and get it repaired till that there you can't repair it anymore. But I came to Delhi and I found out that when you wear salwar, you need to wear a different slipper. When you wear sari, you wear a different slipper. When you wear jeans, you wear a different slipper. I don't know all of these things. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. But what I'm saying is, simple living, let it become a part of your family culture. Teach your children about caring for God's earth and model it. Teach them that we are not only consumers, but we are also caretakers, right? Spend time in nature as much as possible. Let your children fall in love with God's earth. This will naturally give in them a love for God's earth that they will want to take care of it. So now, as much as possible, go out, I know it's difficult, cell phones and all of this, but take them out. Take the effort to take them out to the park, to the mountains, to the rivers, to the oceans, wherever, as much as possible. Spend time in nature. Pray for environmental issues and people suffering because of it. Right? This you can do as a family, you can do as a church as well. Think about, add this as one of your prayer points. There are people suffering because of this, so we can pray for that. Um, you can sit with your family and really take stock of um, your consumption patterns at home. When you have your next family prayer, just sit and talk to your children, your wife, your husband, and say, okay, what's our electricity consumption? Is there any way we can reduce it? What's our water consumption? Right? How many clothes are we buying every year? How much food are we wasting? So if we don't really sit and think about it, it's not going to change. So audit it. Like, I don't mean like technically audit. If you can, you do that, but like, take a stock of how you're consuming things in your house, right? Buy energy efficient appliances. There's a star rating in your fridge, washing machine. So the lesser the star rating, the cheaper it is, but it consumes more energy. But think about long term, okay? You want long term um, benefit or short term. So long term, it's good for you. It saves energy. You cut down on your electricity bill. Plus, it's good for the earth. Okay, as much as possible, buy 5-star rating appliances. Switch to renewable energy wherever possible. Your bulbs, so you can look at all your bulbs, tube lights that you're using. Is there an option to switch it to an environmentally friendly option? Please do it, right? Turn off appliances when not in use. Do you know there's something called phantom power consumption, where energy is still drawn from your sockets even when your appliances are off? So switch off and unplug your appliances when not in use. Okay. Start a garden. If you have one, great. Bring plants into your spaces and care for them. Give people gifts of plants. Now in Eficor, we no longer give flower bouquets, we only give pots. And I think it's becoming a trend everywhere, and it's good. Like, you can get a succulent which is small and they can carry it, and it's good for the environment. So as much as possible, buy gifts which are environmental friendly. Give plants, I think people love it. So um also, know what goes into the stuff that you use. This is something that I did not know for a very long time. Your shampoos, your detergents, your soaps, some of them have very toxic chemicals that when you flush it and when it goes into the water systems, it is very toxic, causes a lot of diseases, plus it's very harmful to the animals that are in the water. So look at it and look for options which is less toxic, right? Buy in large batches as much as possible. Okay, instead of buying 10 packets of 2 rupees coffee packets, you can buy a bigger batch so that the packaging material is reduced. Okay, and recycling as well. Smaller packets are difficult to recycle, so as much as possible, buy larger batches. If you can buy 5 liters of oil, great. Instead of buying 1 liter bottles, you can buy 5 liter. So packaging material is, these are like small ways which will go a long way, right? Buy from your local vendors. Transporting stuff takes a lot of energy. So the closer your food comes to your house from, it's better, right? So buy from your local vendors. It also keeps the money inside your community, which is also economically good. No, hand me downs are great, right? When you have children, when they outgrow it, hand maintain it well, wash it, dry clean it, and give it to someone who needs. Or you can ask for people's hand me downs. Don't be afraid to go for second hand clothes. You should proudly be able to wear clothes which are hand hand me downs which are, repaired. You have a cut, and there's my boss in at work. He has a pant which has a cut and there are stitches on it, and he wears it to every creation care workshop, and he says, I am proud of this. Okay, he's a manager, but he says you should be proud that you're doing things for, to create it, to protect God's earth. And avoid single use plastics. Talk about it. Somebody said that, talk about it. We need people like spaces like this to talk about this. Talk wherever you can, talk about it in the bus, with your neighbors. If you have a welfare association in your society, talk about it. Talk about what you can do. Walk as much as possible or take public transport. This is another thing. I know it's not convenient, but at least something you can tell. My like I was saying, my boss, he's a manager. He's been in Eficor for like over 23 years, and he still doesn't have a two-wheeler or a car. He walks to office 5 kilometers up and down every day. And then he says that if my grandchildren ask me, what did you do to take care of God's earth for me, I can tell them that I did not use my own vehicle, right? So there are so many things that you can do from your part. Walk as much as possible. Take the public transport. Like we don't have a car, but we do have a two-wheeler. And when I take the two-wheeler to the office, I get much more time because it takes less time when I go on the two-wheeler. But when I take the metro, it takes double the time. So it's difficult, I know. But then I make a choice. No, I will do at least what I can. I will leave the house 30 minutes early to take the metro, because if I can take the public transport as much as possible, I'm doing something to care for God's earth, right? As a community, I'll quickly finish. Um, Community gardens are great. If you have a common space, think about how you can start a garden. You can grow your own food, like great for apartments, and, talk about it and see what you can do to clean up drives. Um, I think Mumbai, you can do beach cleanups. There may be rivers in your areas which may need cleanup. So think about, advocate with your local government, right? If you find there is something that is not good for the environment, bring it up, advocate for the environment, for God's earth. Right? Be responsible citizens. Let us be responsible citizens, even in terms of caring. It's not somebody's problem, it's our problem. I mean, if other people are talking so much about it, we who claim that, our God is the creator God, and like we are his children created in his image, we should be much more vocal about these things, right? So plant trees, again, cliche, but like, cannot stress it enough. Plant trees wherever you can. Plant trees. Visit your waste management center. See how it's done. See what challenges they're facing. Segregate your waste, right? Segregate your. That's so crucial. Sometimes I've heard people say that, oh, you know what? Even if you segregate it, the person who comes to collect it just puts it in the same truck. But there are people who are picking waste for recyclables. It helps them. My one of my colleague was telling she was going to throw it, and then there was this little boy who was picking, and then she gave this uh, her packet of segregated waste to him, and he was so happy because it means less for him to, like, having to put his hands into it, and he's able to get one packet full of recyclables. So do it at least for their sake, right? And recognize your waste pickers. They're doing a wonderful job for the earth, right? So say thank you to them. In Eficor, every June 5th, Environmental Day, we go and recognize all the waste pickers in our area. And then we say thank you, we give them gifts, and we say thank you for what you're doing for the earth. Recognize them, right? That's the least you can do. Adopt a park. Okay, I'll finish with this. As a church, what you can do, I think, first of all, talk and preach about it. How many of you have heard sermons about caring for God's creation? Right? I'm a pastor's kid, grew up in church like my second home. I've heard thousands of sermons, but I don't think till I got into this, I'd heard. I mean, I always liked nature, but I never connected with my faith. Like, even the things that I did, I thought they were like cool, or like, eco club in school, but I never thought it was connected to my faith. And it changes things when you realize that your faith has a role in it, so talk about it. Know that it's God's word and not an option. Popularize green culture in your church. Like, I'm sure, like, in your church people can't come and like sit and smoke and drink, right? I mean, like, that's not acceptable. Likewise, if people are cutting down trees using plastics, um it, like in Eficor we have that thing, people, if someone walks in with a plastic cover, you feel so like a criminal because it's not accepted, right? There's a culture in the organization that we don't do things that destroy God's earth. So let your church also bring about that culture where it's not okay to destroy God's earth, right? Include it in your Sunday school syllabus. If June 5th, June 1st week, Eficor, we produce some resources that help churches to observe an Eco Sunday. If you're interested, you can get in touch with me. um, Observe Eco Sunday, talk about it, right? Go for a picnic and worship in the outdoors. Pray and support organizations working for environment. You can have prayer walks, they're great. You do prayer walks plus a cleanup walk, right? Pray even as you pick up rubbish, right? So avoid plastic. I think churches, we produce so much plastic waste, it breaks my heart because we have so many events and everything has food involved, and all of it comes in single use plastic. I mean, it's so sad that we I don't know. I think I'm sure it breaks God's heart to see that we, like, are doing things which are spiritually edifying, but at the same time destroying God's earth, right? So you can also volunteer for relief during disasters. Uh, Eficor, for example, we are a relief organization, and we always work with churches um, when we do relief, right? So your church can serve as a base for the relief. Your volunteers can help in data collection, logistical help, whatever you can, get involved whenever you can when there's a disaster and people are suffering because of that, right? So I want to end with this: be the change you wish to see in the world, right? I know there's a lot to do, but we can do with God's help. So, some organizations that you may want to look into. Unfortunately, there are not many Indian organizations. That's very sad, but I hope that one day I'll have a great list of long list of Indian churches and organizations who are working for this. And I hope some of you can, initiate that in your own churches and communities. So, we have Renew Our World, Eficor, of course. We have Renew Our World, which is group of different evangelical organizations who are doing something for a better world, right? So you can check out these. Arosha International, they also have Arosha India, where in Bangalore they are working in reducing elephant human conflict. So they're doing very good things. You can go and check them out. There's WEA Sustainability Center. WEA is World Evangelical Alliance. So they do a lot of webinars and things like that, so you can check that out. And then this Evangelical Environmental Network that you can sign up and become a part of. So be part of it, speak about it as much as you can, be part of people who are doing things for God's creation as well, right? I will end with this is my last slide.
Does this have any copyright issue? We'll have to cut the live stream, that's all. Okay.
Sorry.
Does it have a copyright issue? Because if it's taken from YouTube and if it's our live stream will be, so what I'll do is I'll cut the live
Okay.
stream until you pay.